Picture this. It is Tuesday afternoon. You're in a conference room or maybe a Zoom breakout room, which is somehow worse because you can't even see who's actually looking at their phone.
Oh yeah, the classic corporate crucible.
Right. And it's a high-stakes strategy session. The air conditioning is humming that low, aggressive hum that makes you sleepy and anxious at the very same time.
I know exactly the hum you mean.
That's terrible. So there's a whiteboard full of scribbles that makes sense to exactly 3 people, and the tension is just palpable. Everyone is trying to learn how to solve this massive, complex problem.
And careers are essentially made or broken in these 30-minute windows.
Exactly. And then there's that one person, you know the one. They aren't necessarily the smartest person in the room. In fact, you distinctly remember them messing up a really basic spreadsheet formula just last week.
We all know that person.
You've seen their work. It's average at best, maybe even below average. But when they speak with absolute, unshakable certainty.
They lean back, they gesture broadly.
Yes. They interrupt just enough to take command of the floor. They don't say, I think. They say the answer is. And by the end of the meeting, whose idea gets picked? Theirs. And who gets tapped to lead the new initiative? They do.
It's a scenario that plays out in boardrooms and classrooms and, well, political stages all over the world every single day. It is basically the fundamental glitch in our social software.
And it drives me absolutely nuts because I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I have the data right here. I've done the reading. I know for a fact that approach is risky. But because I'm couching my language in probability, saying things like, I think, or maybe, or the data suggests we should be cautious, I just get completely steamrolled by the confidence train.
Which is incredibly frustrating for anyone focused on actual learning and accuracy.
Totally. So today we are tackling a question that has plagued me, and I suspect many of you listening for a really long time. Why? Why does the person who speaks the loudest and the most frequently often get the promotion or the team lead role, even if they aren't actually the most competent person in the room?
It is the confidence puzzle. And to solve it, we aren't just going to vent about annoying coworkers. Well, though, I mean, that is therapeutic and entirely valid.
It is very therapeutic.
But we are going on a mission today to really learn and understand the evolutionary and psychological machinery that makes this happen. We are diving into a massive, comprehensive paper from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology.
Yeah, this is the big one. We aren't just skimming a blog post for this deep dive.
No, this is deep academia. The paper is titled A Status Enhancement Account of Overconfidence by Cameron Anderson and his colleagues. It's not just one study. It's a series of 6 interrelated studies that try to crack the code of why human beings are so prone to overestimating themselves.
A status enhancement account. That title alone sounds, it seems transactional, like confidence is a currency that we're spending to buy something.
It is very transactional. And that is the key insight we're going to explore. We are looking at learning why humans evolved to be overconfident in the first place. Because if you think about it strictly from a survival standpoint, accuracy should be king.
Right. If I'm a hunter-gatherer, I need to know exactly how fast I can run and exactly how big that lion is. If I overestimate my running speed by 10%, I don't get a promotion, I get eaten.
Precisely. If you think you can jump across a ravine but you actually can't, the result isn't just embarrassment, it's death. Evolution usually ruthlessly weeds out delusion. If you think you can fight a bear and you can't, you don't pass on your genes.
So the existence of overconfidence is a paradox. It's a trait that seems totally maladaptive. Why on earth did nature select for self-delusion?
That is the hook. Accuracy keeps you alive. Delusion gets you killed. So if we're all walking around with this tendency to overestimate ourselves, which the data overwhelmingly suggests we are, there has to be a payoff that outweighs the risk of falling into the ravine.
And that's the core mission of this deep dive. We are going to explore the theory that we're overconfident not because we're bad at math or just to make ourselves feel fuzzy inside.
Right, which was the old theory, by the way, that it was just a self-esteem buffer.
Oh, interesting. But the new theory is that we are overconfident because it pays off socially. It tricks others into thinking we're competent, and that trickery grants us status.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately. Because when you say tricks others, it sounds like we're talking about con artists. Is this deep dive about how to be a good liar? Because if so, I feel like we're entering some ethically murky waters here.
No, and that is a critical distinction to make right at the start. The paper is very clear on this point. We have to distinguish between impression management and genuine overconfidence.
What's the difference?
Impression management is when I know I'm incompetent. I know I don't have the answer, but I fake it to impress you. That's lying. That's the con artist. That is the used car salesman trying to sell you a lemon.
Okay, so that is conscious deception.
Correct. In this research, overconfidence is defined specifically as overplacement. This means I honestly, in my heart of hearts, believe I am better than I actually am, and specifically that I am better than you.
So the overconfident person isn't lying to me. They've successfully lied to themselves first.
Exactly. They believe their own hype. And that sincerity is actually part of why it works so incredibly well, as we will see. If I believe it, I project it without hesitation. I don't have the tells of a liar because I'm not lying. I am just wrong.
It's the George Costanza rule. It's not a lie if you believe it.
It really is. And the researchers set out to prove that this specific type of self-delusion is a mechanism for climbing the social ladder. They argue that the social benefits of being seen as a leader were so high in our ancestral environment that it was worth the occasional risk of being wrong.
That does make sense. Being the alpha gets you the best food, the best mates, the best shelter. So even if you risk looking like an idiot once in a while, the payout of being the boss is totally worth it.
Exactly. So let's look at how they prove this. Because it's one thing to have a neat evolutionary theory. It is another to prove it in a lab.
Right. So we have a paper with 6 different studies. That is a ton of data. Where do we even start?
We start in the lab with study 1. This was designed to test the most basic premise. Does overconfidence actually translate to status? If I think I'm better than I am, do you buy it? Or do you see right through me?
Set the scene for us. Are we talking about a complex negotiation or something simple?
They kept it simple but revealing. The researchers bring in university students and pair them up. Diets. 2 people who do not know each other.
Okay.
They give them a task that is objectively measurable, but obscure enough that people can vary wildly in ability.
Wow.
U.S. geography.
Oh, boy.
Specifically placing cities on a blank map of North America.
I would be terrible at this. I'd probably put Chicago and Idaho. I have absolutely no spatial sense for the Midwest.
Most people are terrible at it, which is what makes it perfect.
Yeah.
It creates what we call ambiguity. If I ask you what is 2 plus 2, there's no room for overconfidence. But I ask you to pinpoint the exact latitude of Omaha, there's a lot of wiggle room.
Okay, so before they work together, do they know how good they actually are?
The researchers have everyone do the task individually first. And here's the twist. They ask the participants to rate their own ability. How good do you think you are at this compared to everyone else?
Establishing the baseline.
This allows the researchers to measure that overplacement we talked about. They calculate the gap between how good the person thought they were versus how good they actually were.
So if I score in the 50th percentile, like totally average, but I rate myself as being in the 90th percentile, I have a massive overconfidence score.
Correct. You are objectively average, but subjectively you think you're a genius. So then they put these pairs together to work on the map. They have to agree on the locations as a team. Afterward, they ask each person to rate their partner.
What kind of questions?
Things like, how confident was your partner? How much should your partner be respected? Did your partner lead the decision-making?
They're measuring status. They're measuring who took charge of the room.
They were measuring status and perceived competence. And the results were striking. Overconfidence successfully predicted partner-rated competence. If you walked in there thinking you were a geography genius, your partner walked out thinking you were a geography genius, regardless of your actual score.
Wait, regardless of the score. So I could be putting Miami in Canada, but if I do it with enough swagger, my partner just thinks I'm a genius.
Within reason, obviously. If you are totally incoherent, the illusion breaks down. But assuming basic functionality, yes. If you say, Miami is definitely right here near Toronto with absolute certainty, your partner, who is probably unsure themselves, will likely just defer to you.
That is wild to me. But how much does it actually matter? Is it a small effect?
Here is where it gets really interesting and honestly a little disturbing for those of us who value merit and learning. The correlation between overconfidence and achieving status was almost as strong as the correlation between actual ability and status.
Wait, pause right there. That is a massive statement. You're saying that being deluded about my skill is almost as effective at getting me status as actually having the skill.
Almost exactly as effective. Let's look at the actual numbers. The correlation for actual ability was 0.39. The correlation for overconfidence was 0.36.
Wow.
Statistically, those are incredibly close. In the eyes of your peer, your unjustified confidence looked nearly identical to real expertise.
That is terrifying. It explains so much about the world, but it is completely terrifying. It means we as observers are terrible at telling the difference between someone who knows what they're doing and someone who just thinks they know what they're doing.
It implies that in social interactions, we don't have a scanner To see inside someone's brain and measure their IQ or their knowledge bank, we have to rely on proxies, we have to rely on cues. And it turns out confidence is a very loud cue that drowns out a lot of other noise.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. I'm thinking about the listeners who are naturally skeptical. You said correlation. And we all know the old adage, right? Correlation does not equal causation.
A very fair challenge. And the researchers anticipated this exactly.
Because couldn't it be possible that people who are naturally high status, maybe they are tall or good-looking or just super charismatic, also happen to be overconfident? Maybe the confidence isn't causing the status, it's just riding shotgun. Or maybe being high status makes you overconfident because everyone treats you so well.
That is the classic skeptic's question, and it's exactly what Anderson and his team asked themselves. They knew Study 1 showed a link, but it didn't prove direction. They needed to prove causality. They needed to prove that the confidence itself was the active ingredient manufacturing the status.
So how do you prove that?
They designed Study 3. This is the false feedback experiment.
I love a good psychological manipulation. How did they set it up?
They brought people in and had them do a person perception task, basically looking at photos of people and judging their personalities. Does this person look kind? Does this person look aggressive?
Clever. It's a task where it's very hard to know objectively if you are right or wrong just by your gut feeling.
Right. It is highly ambiguous.
Yeah.
There's no answer key in the back of the book that the participant can check to verify their score. Perfect for manipulation.
So people do this task. Then what?
Then the researchers give them feedback. But the feedback is totally fake. They take a random group of people, let's call them Group A, and tell them, wow, you are amazing at this. You scored 37 out of 50. That is extremely high. You have a real gift for reading people.
Instant ego boost. You're telling me I'm special? Even if I felt unsure doing the task, now I'm thinking, you know what? I am pretty good at this.
Exactly. Then they take Group B and say, you did okay. You were accurate right around the average. Now, crucially, the people in Group A weren't actually better at the task. They were just told they were better. This created a group of people who had manufactured overconfidence. They believed they were experts, but they possessed no special skill.
So now you have a petri dish of artificially inflated egos.
Yeah.
You've created a bunch of people who think they are person perception wizards.
Exactly. Then they took these manipulated individuals and paired them with new partners who didn't know anything about the feedback, to work on a joint task. And guess what happened?
Let me guess. The people who thought they were experts acted like experts, and their poor partners bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Completely. The individuals who were manipulated into feeling overconfident were rated by their new partners as significantly more competent and were given higher status in the pair. They were way more influential in the decision-making process.
That is wild, because nothing had actually changed about them. They didn't learn a new skill. They didn't get any smarter. The only thing that changed was a false belief planted in their own head. And that false belief was enough to reshape their social reality.
It effectively proves the status enhancement account. You can manufacture status simply by making someone believe they are an expert. The internal belief translates into external behavior, which then convinces the world.
This is like the placebo effect, but for leadership.
That is a brilliant way to put it. It is a social placebo effect.
Okay, so if I wake up tomorrow and just decide I am the absolute best host in the universe, eventually you'll all just start treating me like royalty.
Well, we might need to look at the behavioral data first, but theoretically, yes. If you believe it strongly enough, it changes how you act. It changes your posture, your voice, your willingness to interrupt. It changes the signal you are broadcasting.
But surely there's a limit. I mean, Study 1 and Study 3 were short-term, right? You meet someone, you work on a task for 15 minutes, you judge them. Of course you can fool someone for 15 minutes. We've all been on bad first dates where the person seemed great for an hour and then the crazy came out.
Right, the first impression bias.
The fake it till you make it, or rather believe it till you make it, strategy has to crumble eventually, doesn't it? We call this the charlatan hypothesis, right? The idea that over time people will realize you're a fraud. If you keep saying you're a geography genius and you keep putting Paris and Texas, eventually I'm going to stop respecting you. Eventually the results have to matter.
That's the logical assumption. Reality has to catch up. So the researchers moved out of the lab and into the wild. Or as close to the wild as you can get in academia, which is a business school. This was Study 2. They followed a cohort of MBA students.
High stakes. Highly competitive. These are people who are trained to spot nonsense.
Very much so. These were real project teams working together for 7 weeks. Their grades depended on this. They spent hours together stressed out solving complex problems. If the overconfidence bubble was going to burst, it would definitely burst here.
7 weeks is definitely enough time to figure out if your teammate is actually smart or just loud. You see them under pressure. You see their actual output. You see them make mistakes.
You would think so. Now, to measure overconfidence here, they use something called the Overclaiming Questionnaire, or OCQ. I love this metric because it is so incredibly devious.
Call it to work.
They give you a list of items, historical events, authors, concepts, and they ask how familiar are you with these. So the Treaty of Versailles, or identified this author, but mixed in with the real items are foils, fake terms, made-up names.
Oh, I love this. Like the Battle of Schrute Farms or the theory of retrograde flux capacitance.
Exactly. I am a huge fan of the works of B.J. Hevington.
B.J. Hevington. Sounds very sophisticated.
Completely doesn't exist. Queen Alberta.
Never heard of her.
Because she never existed.
Yeah.
But if you check the box saying, oh yes, I'm quite familiar with Queen Alberta, you are overclaiming. You are claiming knowledge you cannot possibly possess.
It captures that specific person at the party who just nods along to everything. Oh yes, the vintage 1998. Very witty.
It's a perfect measure of the know-it-all tendency. It measures your willingness to pretend you know things. So they measured this overclaiming tendency at the beginning of the semester. Then they let the teams work for 7 weeks. At the end, they asked the teammates to rate each other on status and influence.
And what happened? Did the know-it-alls get exposed?
Here is the kicker. Even after 7 weeks of working closely together, the overconfident individuals, the ones who claimed to know the fake terms, still held higher status.
Still, after 7 solid weeks.
The correlation held. The bubble did not burst. In fact, if we connect this to the bigger picture, they also looked at peer-assigned grades. In this class, part of your grade came from your teammates. The overconfident people were actually given better grades by their peers than the accurate people were.
So not only did they get the social ego boost, they got the tangible reward. They got the A. That is, well, it's incredibly frustrating.
It is. It implies that the charlatan effect is much weaker than we hope. We don't easily detect the gap between confidence and competence, even over time. The status enhancement from overconfidence is incredibly durable. Even when the person is demonstrably wrong about Queen Alberta, we somehow rationalize it.
But why? Is it because we just don't want to rock the boat? Or is it because once we label someone as smart, we view everything they do through that lens?
It's highly likely a confirmation bias. Once you display the cues of confidence early on, I label you as competent. From then on, I interpret your behavior through that filter. If you make a mistake, I think, oh, they must have a really complex reason for that, or, well, it was a very tricky problem. If a quiet person makes a mistake, I think, see, I knew they didn't know what they were doing.
That is depressing, but also fascinating. It suggests that even smart, motivated MBA students can't peel back the mask. Why? What are these overconfident people doing?
Yeah.
If I'm overconfident, what am I actually doing with my face, my voice, my body that tricks people so effectively? It can't just be telepathy.
That is the million-dollar question. And for that, we turn to study 4. This is actually my favorite part of the entire paper because it gets into the granular mechanics of behavior. They use something called the Brunswick lens model.
The lens model. Sounds fancy. Break it down for us.
Imagine a lens like a camera lens or a magnifying glass sitting between two people. On one side is the target, the person being judged. Inside their head, they have their actual competence, which is hidden, and their confidence, which is also internal. No one can see those directly.
Right. I can't see your brain or your test scores hovering over your head like a video game.
Exactly. On the other side of the lens is the observer. They can't see inside the target's head either. They can only see what comes through the lens.
And the lens is the behavior.
Right. The cues. How loud they talk, their posture, their eye contact, the words they choose. The lens model allows researchers to analyze 2 things. First, cue display. What behaviors do overconfident people actually show? And second, cue utilization. Which behaviors do observers actually use to decide if someone is smart?
So we're looking for the match. Do overconfident people output the exact signals that observers input as competence?
Exactly. So they videotaped groups working on a task. Then they had coders, impartial observers, analyze every second of the tape ticking off specific behaviors on a checklist. Then they compared that to how competent the group members thought each person was.
Okay, let's unpack the checklist. If I want to hack my status, or if I'm unconsciously overconfident, what am I doing? Am I standing on the table beating my chest? Am I bullying people?
No, and that's a crucial finding. It's not about aggression or dominance in a bullying sense.
Yeah.
It's not about being a jerk at all. The single strongest predictor, talking time.
Just quantity.
Quantity, the absolute amount of time spent speaking. Overconfident individuals spoke more than anyone else in the room.
The filibuster strategy. If I keep talking, no one else can prove I'm wrong.
Essentially, yes. But it wasn't just mindless babble. They provided more information relevant to the problem. They threw out more ideas. They also offered answers first. That initiative cue is huge. If a question is asked and you jump in immediately, that signals immense authority.
It anchors the conversation. Even if you're wrong, you've set the terms of the debate. If I say the problem is marketing, then for the rest of the meeting we're here talking about marketing, even if the problem is actually engineering.
Correct. You define the playing field. They also used a specific vocal tone. The coders described it as factual and confident. They didn't sound wavering or uncertain. They didn't use uptalk, where you end a sentence like it's a question.
I think the answer is Paris.
Right. That signals I am asking for validation. That signal, please tell me if I'm right. The overconfident person says the answer is Paris. Factual, calm, relaxed. They also had expanded posture, taking up physical space, leaning back, arms open.
So the checklist is talk a lot. Talk first. Talk like a newscaster. Sit big.
But here's what's fascinating. It's what they didn't do. They did not make explicit statements of confidence. They didn't say, I am the smartest person here. They didn't say, I am really good at this task.
Really? Because I would have assumed overconfidence equals bragging. Like, I'm the best. Look at me.
And that is a very common misconception. The data showed that explicit bragging, saying I'm the king, actually hurts status. It makes you unlikable. We do not like arrogance. But overconfidence works because it is subtle. It manifests as competence cues. We see someone who is calm, who speaks up first, who talks a lot, and our brain doesn't register arrogance. It registers expertise.
That is such a subtle but deadly distinction. If you say I'm the king, people hate you. If you just act like the king, people crown you.
Precisely. It's the difference between telling and showing. The overconfident person shows competence through their ease and their volume.
Okay, but here's the tragedy of this whole thing. If overconfident people are doing all these things, talking first, acting calm, what are the actually smart people doing?
That leads us to the competence trap. This is the most disturbing data point from the study. They looked at the actually competent people, the ones who really knew the answers. And they checked, did actual competence predict these cues?
I'm hoping you say yes. I'm hoping smart people also spoke up.
Barely. Actual competence did not strongly predict talking time. It didn't predict offering answers first. Smart people didn't necessarily sound more confident. So you have this massive mismatch. We use talking a lot as a proxy for knowing a lot, but the study shows these are often completely unrelated. Overconfident people mimic the look of competence better than actually competent people do.
That is the big aha moment for me. We are wired to look for these shortcuts, volume, speed, tone. And because the actually smart people are often plagued by doubt, they know it's complicated, they're thinking before they speak, they're running the probabilities in their head, they don't display the cues. They sit back, they use uptalk, they say maybe.
It's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. The incompetents are sure, and the competent are full of doubt. Meanwhile, the overconfident person is broadcasting on all frequencies. And because the overconfident person believes they are right, their nonverbal signals are totally congruent. They aren't sweating. They aren't fidgeting. They are calm. And calmness is a huge signal for leadership.
It makes you think about the concept of imposter syndrome, but in reverse. The people who should be leaders feel like frauds, and the frauds feel like leaders.
It's exactly that dynamic.
Yeah.
And the group rewards the fraud because the fraud makes the group feel safe. A confident leader makes us feel like the problem is under control. An uncertain leader makes us anxious.
So we've established that it works. It works in the lab, it works in the MBA classroom, and we know how it works through these behavioral cues. But now I want to know about the drive. What is the engine here? Is this just about wanting to be popular? Do overconfident people just want everyone to like them?
That brings us to Study 5, where they looked at personality and motives. They measured two different drives, the need for affiliation and the need for dominance.
Break those down for us.
Need for affiliation is the desire to have friends, to be liked, to be part of the group warmth. It's the class clown or the nice guy motivation. You want social glue.
Right. I want everyone to be happy and get along.
Need for dominance, on the other hand, is the desire for authority, influence, and control over others. The class president motivation. I want to steer the ship.
Popularity versus power.
Exactly. And the results were stark. The need for affiliation did not predict overconfidence. If you want people to, you don't necessarily delude yourself into thinking you're a genius. In fact, being too confident can sometimes alienate people if you aren't careful. But the need for dominance strongly predicted overconfidence.
So this is a power play.
It is 100% a power play. It suggests that people unconsciously inflate their self-view specifically to climb the hierarchy. It's a tool. The brain says, I want to run this group. To run this group, I need status. To get status, I need to look competent. To look competent, I need to believe I am competent.
It's a subconscious strategy for upward mobility. It's not, I'm happy, it's, I'm in charge.
And Study 6 proved just how surgical this strategy really is. This is the priming experiment. They took participants and had them read a story. Half the group read a story about losing a wallet. Just a neutral, slightly stressful scenario.
The control group.
The other half read a story imagining they were entering a prestigious company. The boss tells them there's a fast track to the top, but it's highly competitive. They had to imagine the ambition to suit the corner office. They triggered the status motive.
Putting them in the mindset of, I need to win. I need to get ahead right now.
Then they asked everyone to rate their own abilities on a list of skills. Some were business-relevant skills, like intelligence, leadership, analytical thinking. Others were totally irrelevant. Driving ability, reflex speed, musical aptitude.
I see where this is going. If I'm just an arrogantly delusional person, generally I should think I'm great at everything.
Right, but that's not what happened. The group that was primed with the status story didn't just become generally arrogant. They didn't start thinking they were better drivers or better musicians. They inflated their views only on the business skills.
Wow. So the brain said, I need that promotion, and immediately inflated the specific stats required to get that promotion while leaving the other stats completely alone.
It's a surgical strike. The brain knows exactly where to be overconfident to get the status it craves. It doesn't waste energy being overconfident about things that won't help it climb the ladder.
That is actually incredibly sophisticated for a delusion. It's not a blunt instrument. It's a precision tool. It implies our subconscious is constantly calculating, what do I need to believe about myself right now to win this situation?
It implies that overconfidence is a functional adaptation. It's a feature, not a bug. It evolved because it works.
So let's pivot to you, the listener. Let's call you the learner. Because we have a lot of people listening who might be realizing, oh no, I am the quiet, competent person. Or maybe, oh no, I am the loud, overconfident person. Why does this matter to you?
If you are the learner, someone who deeply values accuracy, knowledge, and competence, this research is a massive wake-up call. It explains why simply doing good work is often not enough to get recognized.
The classic meritocracy myth. We want to believe that the best work rises to the top like cream.
But the Status-Enhancement Theory says that groups select leaders based on confidence cues, not accuracy. And here's the scary part. Once that person is selected as the leader, the prophecy fulfills itself.
How so?
Think about it. Once you are the leader, you get more airtime. You get more resources. You get more support staff. You get the benefit of the doubt. You get the better projects. So even if you started out less competent, the status itself gives you the tools to succeed, reinforcing the group's initial decision.
It locks it in. The loud novice gets the resources to become the loud expert, while the quiet expert sits in the corner with no budget.
Exactly. It creates a feedback loop that completely excludes the quiet, competent types. So for the learner who tends to be humble or who suffers from imposter syndrome, this is a call to action. You don't have to become an arrogant jerk. Remember, explicit bragging doesn't work. But you do need to adopt the behavioral cues of competence.
You need to hack the lens model.
Yes. Speak up early. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Anchor the conversation. Speak with a factual tone. Remove the I thinks and maybes from your sentences, even if you're internally checking your probability. Occupy space.
It feels uncomfortable for people who value precision. It feels like lying. It feels like I'm betraying my scientific integrity by acting certain when I know the world is uncertain.
Think of it as translation. You are translating your internal competence into a language the group can actually understand. If you speak the language of doubt and nuance, the group hears incompetence. You have to speak the language of confidence for them to hear expertise. You owe it to your good ideas to wrap them in a package that people will buy.
That's a great reframing. If I have the cure for cancer, but I whisper it in the corner, I'm not helping anyone.
Exactly. And on the flip side, if you are in a position of hiring or managing this, raises a massive red flag about how we interview.
Oh, totally. The job interview is basically the Olympics of overconfidence.
It is designed to reward the exact cues we just talked about. The person who answers immediately, speaks fluently, and sells themselves is the one we hire. We are heavily biased to select the overconfident.
And we usually regret it 6 months later when we realize they can't actually do the job. So what is the antidote?
We need objective measures, work samples, blind tests. If you are hiring a coder, look at their code. Don't just talk to them. If you are hiring a writer, read their writing. We have to bypass our own flawed social radar because our radar is tuned for status, not truth. We have to deliberately blind ourselves to the confidence cues.
It brings us back to that evolutionary question we started with. Why did we evolve this way? If it leads to us following incompetent leaders who might walk us right off a cliff, why didn't nature fix this?
The authors argue that on average, the benefits of status resources made survival outweigh the costs of being wrong sometimes. Being a hesitant, accurate loner was an evolutionary dead end. Being a confident, slightly delusional chief meant you had the tribe's protection. We are the descendants of the overconfident.
We are the children of the people who said, I can definitely fight that bear, and then just got lucky.
Or convinced 10 other people to fight the bear for them.
Right. It really changes how you look at a meeting room. You stop getting angry at the loud guy and start seeing him as a biological machine executing a very old, very successful program.
And you realize that if you want your voice heard, you have to play a little bit of that game too.
So we've journeyed from the geography map to the boardroom. We've seen that overconfidence is a social strategy, not just a cognitive glitch. It works by mimicking the cues of real competence, like talking first, talking more, staying calm. It's driven by a hunger for dominance, and it is incredibly hard to detect even for smart people.
It is a sobering look at human hierarchy. We are not nearly as rational as we like to think.
I want to leave you with a thought. We've spent this whole time talking about how overconfidence is a win for the individual. It gets them the job, the status, the grade, but what about the group?
That is the ultimate tension. What is good for the ambitious individual is often terrible for the collective.
Exactly. If overconfidence is the key to status, and status is the key to influence, does that mean our society is destined to be led by those who have the least grip on reality? The people most detached from the truth are the ones most likely to end up running the show. And next time you're in a meeting, ask yourself, are you listening to the best idea or just the most confident voice?
A critical question for every learner to keep in mind.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Keep questioning the cues.
And check your own overplacement.
See you next time.